Hello, welcome to this week's episode of Till Death Do Us Pod with me, Michael Lee.
And me, Tova Lee.
How are you?
I'm good. You never do the intros anymore. I was really impressed that you remembered
I
what
remembered
to say.
it.
Yes.
It is kind of the title of the podcast is in front of me, so even I can't forget
No,
it.
but it's true. I should get like the bigger chair. I do have the bigger chair actually, but anyway. I'm good. How are you?
Good, yeah.
Good.
All well.
Yes.
All
good.
well. Looking forward to today's show.
I am looking forward to it as well. We are talking to the lovely Scott Stuart today, all the way from Australia.
Yeah, we have his book that our kids have really enjoyed, haven't they?
Yes, really enjoyed. I feel like the fact that we're doing these podcasts on Zoom has really allowed us to expand the pool of guests, because suddenly we're like, we can talk to people in Australia.
Yeah.
No big deal.
Yes.
Right. I mean, it's kind of like 5 a.m. in the morning now, but who cares? I don't think we've ever recorded a podcast this early. Yes. So Scott Stuart is a children's books author. Did I say that right?
Yeah, yeah.
And also content creator and a speaker. And I came across one of his videos about toxic masculinity. I hope I said that right.
That beautifully.
Thank you.
Yeah.
On TikTok.
Yeah.
Which you wouldn't think you would come across that type of video, right, on TikTok. But I thought he spoke so beautifully, and it was so engaging. You know how now people don't watch anything that's longer than 15 seconds. But if you do, you're onto something that's really good. So then I went to his page and basically watched all of his videos, and I was really inspired, so much so that I went out and bought his book.
Yeah.
Yay! So without further ado, let's welcome him to the show. Hello, Scott.
Hello. I feel like I need like a drum roll in the background from that voice intro.
Yeah. We'll drop it in the edit.
Yeah,
there we go.
Okay, perfect.
How are you? It's so good to speak to you in person-ish on Zoom.
I know. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I am magnificent. I'm pumped to be here. I can't wait to chat.
So we are going to play a game that we play with all our guests, and it is called Two Truths and a Lie. Although I'm going to do two lies and a truth, because I always get this wrong. I am sorry. And Mike's quickly writing down things now. He's not prepared. You are disqualified. Okay, Scott, can I go first? Because mine are so bad today, but I kind of like them. Okay, so they're little things. Okay, so it's all about my sleep habits. Okay, so the first one is I like to fall asleep with dolphin sounds. Like, I like nature, particularly dolphins, but I can go with like also jungle, but I like to fall asleep with it. That was my one. Number two is I have to sleep with earplugs and an eye mask. Like, if I'm not in complete silence and complete darkness, I cannot sleep. And number three is I like sleeping on the floor, because I have really bad back problems. Like, I hurt my neck when I was 30. And if I don't sleep on the floor, like I have a mattress on the floor, it's bad for me. Those are my three.
My struggle here is like they all seem really true. Like, I can imagine you going to sleep with lions roaring and stuff like that. So, and sleeping on the back was just oddly specific. So I think I'm gonna go with, I don't know, like, let's go with the eye mask and that's your lie. Hang on, we're two lies.
No, one lie.
One lie. Okay.
No, two lies and one truth.
Oh my, okay, so I'm going to turn that into the truth then.
And one is the truth.
Oh, I see.
So which one is the truth?
What's the truth? Okay.
The truth, I'm going to go with like you listening to a cacophony of animal sounds.
Oh God, I so wish I was that person. I feel like that is a cool person, that goes to sleep with it.
Well, you've got Mike lying next to you.
Snore like a wild pig. Tell you what about
that. No, I'm afraid to say that is not the truth. The truth is that I sleep with earplugs and an iPad.
Because of my snoring.
Which is like the most boring thing ever. But yes, I cannot sleep if there's even a little bit of light and Mike snoring. So that is it. Yep. So you failed. You failed, Scott. No points for you.
Damn it.
Okay, you go now.
Okay, well, I kind of went a different route. I went experiences that I've had, and I tried to make them all oddly specific so you can't tell.
Okay.
Okay, so I once broke my hand riding a bull riding at midnight.
Wow.
I was once hired as a professional hip hop dancer without any experience or expertise as a hip hop dancer.
I want that to
Um,
be true.
and the last one is I spent a little small amount of time as a chauffeur, and I got fired by Vin Diesel for driving too fast.
Wow, that's a brilliant one.
Wow.
If that's a lie, that's a brilliant one to think of.
I feel like that is true, though.
Yeah,
No,
it's
I
so
think
obscure. Vin Diesel.
Wait, what was
where
the
would
bull
that
one?
name come from?
What was the bull
Broke
one?
his hand
Oh, yeah.
I
riding.
broke my hand
I feel
riding
like
a bull at midnight.
that
Riding
is
a
the
bull,
lie.
unless he's got some
I
sort of
mean-
Spanish holidays, been to Spain.
Spanish
Come and ride the
holiday.
bulls.
Where'd you, what?
Bullfighting, you can ride bulls.
Yeah, but can you ride bulls?
Yeah, the little ones, yeah.
Little ones. I
don't know that.
I've never seen a little bull.
I think he's hip hop danced.
No, I think he did pop dance for sure. I feel like he did do the chauffeur thing. I think it's the bull thing. It's a lie.
I think the bull's a lie as well.
Okay.
The lie is Vin Diesel.
Ah!
But it's
Wow.
somebody else's truth. I have that story from somebody else. So yeah.
Clever.
Wow.
Oh, that's clever.
Yeah.
Okay, so we
There you
are
go.
rubbish
1-1.
at this. We're really bad at this game, by the way.
That's all right. Here we go. We can redeem ourselves with you.
Okay, Mike, you got stuff?
No, I don't.
Oh.
No. I'm sorry. I'm not going to beat Vin
The
Diesel.
first lie will be I'm really good at coming up with two truths and a lie.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think we're not going to top Vin Diesel.
No,
He mentioned.
never. That was good. That was really good.
What I want to ask you first,
Yeah.
before we go into the books and the inspiration from the books and all that, is what's your background? What were you doing before you were writing?
So I have a pretty varied background. So my first career was in finance, and it
Okay.
lasted
Wow.
until the second day when I hated it. And I stayed in it for another year or so, trying to plot my path out. But I got into design, graphic design and animation and illustration, and I was in that for 15 years. I was really fortunate to get to work with people like Disney and Warner Brothers, and designing toys for companies, and it was super rad. But it was close to my passion. It was I was getting to be visual and creative, but what I really wanted to do was be an author, and so I just had to make that little leap. And it took me till I was 30 till I did that.
And did you then did you already have ideas for books and things you wanted to do, or were you a bit like, I'm not too sure which direction I should be going in with this?
Yeah, look, I was definitely the very stereotypical author who wanted to be an author their entire life and didn't write a word, and so then when I was 30, I just had this little idea when my son was born of, wouldn't it be cool if he could grow up and there was just a book out there with his name in it? Like, wouldn't that just be fun? And so I just wrote this book, and then I thought, maybe I should publish this thing. And it was a raging success. I sold 7 copies, but I just fell totally in love with everything about it, the process. And I had all these ideas, and the thing with ideas is when you actually work on an idea and you create something, then 15 more ideas come in. It's just when you kind of sit with an idea and you're like, oh, I've got this idea for a book or something, and it takes like 5 years to get around to it, you're just stuck on that one. But when you actually get in and create them, no matter how terrible they are, more ideas just start kind of flying in.
So we're going to get back into the books in a minute, because obviously your newest book, your new book now, is My Shadow is Pink. And again, inspired by your son. And I want to hear all that story. I mean, I know the story, but I want you to tell the listeners the story. But before, I want to talk about your videos, actually, because you are really out there creating some amazing content and talking about gender and gender equality and
Toxic masculinity.
Which actually, weirdly, Mike, when I mentioned it yesterday and we were talking about us talking to you this today, Mike said, oh, I don't know what that means. So do you want to kind of explain what that means? And also why are you creating that content, and why on TikTok?
Yeah, sure. So
it's about 8
like
questions.
8 questions, basically. Go.
Well, I'll start with the first. So, I am, firstly, I'm really passionate about it because I'm raising a young man, and so I know how I grew up. I grew up in, an environment with wildly rigid gender stereotypes and ideas of masculinity. And basically the idea around toxic masculinity is not, besides common belief that it's, all masculinity is toxic. It's just that there are certain belief systems and patterns of behaviors and environments that create toxicity that's really heightened in masculinity. There's this amazing study that I was part of a panel of here in Australia. It was Australia, US, UK, Mexico, whole bunch of countries, and they basically took men who had what we would call like traditional beliefs in masculinity, which you will just label it as a bit more toxic, and then men who had more kind of modern beliefs of masculinity where they can express their emotions. They don't believe that toughness is like the number one thing of being a man. And they looked at all these different things, from whether they had perpetrated bullying in the last couple of weeks to whether they had been suicidal in the last couple of weeks, whether they'd committed sexual harassment, and every number was just wild. Sexual harassment was like 70% of men had perpetrated it, but if they had more modern beliefs, 3% of men had perpetrated it. Even bullying in schools, boys with more traditional beliefs in masculinity, it was like 47%. If they had more modern beliefs in masculinity, it was like 5%. And so just almost every single behavior that we're kind of struggling with young men was just was fixed, improved, just through a more modern approach to masculinity. So I'm really passionate about it. I think probably the thing that got me really passionate about it was when I saw the stats around like male youth suicide, just knowing that if you line up 10 men, 7 to 8 of them have thought about it in the last 2 weeks. I mean, that's just ridiculous, and so I wanted to kind of start making a difference in it. And TikTok, because I don't even know why. Like, I don't dance on there. Maybe I've done one terrible dance, but that's about it. I just started talking on there, and I was very fortunate to be there early last year, 2020, when there was a bit of a kind of explosion in users to TikTok, and it just kind of gave me my platform, and here we are.
No, I think it's good because obviously TikTok traditionally has a younger audience, so it's so important that those messages are going out to and younger people. I hope are listening. But going back to what you were talking about earlier, I think when people think about toxic masculinity, I think there's probably a tendency to think that it's about male being hurtful towards females, but actually what you were touching on is how toxic masculinity is affecting men, and that's something that I don't think is an obvious thing. So the stats for suicide or even suicidal thoughts, and just being trapped in an idea about what you're supposed to be like as a man. Like, I talk a lot about obviously sexism, and I always come from a point of view of a female because I'm a woman and that's my point of view. But I have a lot of male followers who talk to me about feeling trapped in the society's idea about what it means to be a man. Some stay-at-home dads who talk about being their bloke friends maybe making fun of them, but actually saying that the moms on the playground really are really accepting, and just the whole idea of the roles we're supposed to play in society. Did you feel like you got backlash, or that you got some sort of judgment or criticism from, I don't know, your peers, your friends, family, or just even people online?
Oh my gosh, if you want to include online in there, like definitely. My comment sections are sometimes the most toxic thing on the face of the earth. It's I have this really, really beautiful community around me. But every now and then my videos kind of go out to a broader reach, particularly your reach that includes younger men. And it is wild the amount of like victimization of themselves they're kind of putting into, like, even anything around like sexual harassment or sexual assault, like suddenly they're the victims and they're calling me out on it. It's insane, but we've definitely experienced a lot of struggles with my family. I said earlier that I've been kind of raised in really rigid definitions of masculinity. My dad and I'm 37 years old. I still feel really uncomfortable saying the words "I love you" to him. It's something that we kind of squeeze out at the end of maybe one conversation a year, and it's like, I love you. Hang up. It's just so uncomfortable. And so particularly with my son, who he is a young boy who really smashes a lot of gender stereotypes, and so experiencing a lot of backlash. And the stereotype is that it kind of happens from all the men in our lives, but I'd say at least half of the problems that we've had have been from the women in our lives. My mum had enormous struggles with accepting my son breaking gender stereotypes. We had a lot of women friends who were really critical of well, aren't you raising him not to be a man? And and so it kind of comes from everywhere, rather than just those kind of stereotypical places. But yes, I have definitely experienced all sides of it, and it's not often fun.
Did you have any knowledge of this before, or did you effectively learn on the job? Because you touched on it there. Basically, from my understanding, your son at a young age liked playing with what are traditionally known as girls' toys and putting on dresses, dress up and stuff. So did you have any background, or were you like, okay, how do I deal with this? I need to go and find other people that have gone through this, and how I talk to him, how I talk to others, how I interact with his school friends. Did you have to learn all this?
Yeah, so look, when my son first wanted to, it was Elsa that he first became really captivated
Okay.
by. He fell completely in love with Queen Elsa, and he wanted to wear an Elsa costume or an Elsa dress. And I would love to say that, I've got 37 years of being really accepting, and and so I was into it straight away, and I knew what to do. That was not my story at all. He asked me if he could put it on, and I was viscerally uncomfortable. It kind
Was
of
it
went
just
against.
for I want to wear an Elsa dress to school one day, or was it Halloween? Like, was there a reason? Was it just a random day?
It was just Tuesday,
Right.
and it wasn't even outside. It was inside the house, contained in our little universe, which no one could see, and I was still really uncomfortable. But I did have enough self-awareness to kind of step back and go,
to realize
why am I uncomfortable here? And just kind of sit in it for a second, and what's the worst that can happen? I'll just say yes. I say yes, and then suddenly this explosion of joy that I've never seen kind of comes over him. And once you see that, you kind of can't go back. But I still had all my conditioning from 30 odd years of kind of growing up how I grew up, to work through. And so it took me a lot of time to kind of work through my own, I don't want to say issues because it's the wrong word, but my own biases, my own discomfort. And that kind of resurfaced every time we would go further out into the world, so it
and
was
what was that first moment like? Because okay, you're in the house, I think I'd probably react exactly the same way as you did, if I'm honest, that initial thing. But when he went, I now want to go out dressed in whatever he wants to dress in.
He dressed in an Elsa dress
Well,
himself and went out. There's an amazing video of you walking down the street.
It was a few steps before I put it on as well. So like we went out into the world, like he wanted to go to the bookstore. There was this beautiful bookstore we went to almost every day. We went there, and he was kind of dressed in, I think it was like an Anna costume or something. And walking down the street, it was kind of that feeling. Have you ever had that feeling like everybody's looking at me and judging me right now? And selfishly, I wasn't thinking, what are people thinking of him? I was like, what are people thinking of me? What do they think of me as a parent, as a man? And so kind of working through that, had a couple of like really negative experiences, and they're the ones that kind of stand out, not the 8,000 super positive experiences of everybody kind of stopping in the street and saying, oh, you look amazing, that's so cool, you're doing that. And so then when it actually came to that thing that you kind of alluded to, where I dressed up with him, so it was coming to the Frozen 2 cinematic release here in Australia, and we've been talking about this for months. Like we were wanting to make it into this big, event and experience in our house. We were going to like do decorations and then go there. And he was going to wear his Elsa costume, and he was starting to get really afraid. He was starting to feel really scared of what people might think, that people might laugh at him, people might bully him. And so he asked me if I wanted to dress up too. And to be completely honest, I was like, in my head, I was like, not really, but outside I was like, yeah, absolutely, I would love to, let's do this. And so I put on, I went on Amazon, I bought the biggest Elsa dress you could possibly find. I put it on, it was still kind of bursting at the seams, and we went together to the cinema, and the first 20 minutes of walking down the street, I was just, my heart was beating a billion, times a second. I was terrified. I was nervous. I was uncomfortable. And then, the cinema we went to has this like obnoxiously large escalator that kind of goes down into the cinema. And we were standing on this escalator, and you're on this thing for like a minute and a half. It's crazy, huge. And there's just the whole crowd of everybody at the bottom kind of looking up at you. And so they're all looking up at us, and we're the only ones on the escalator. I'm just like, oh my God, talk about being in the spotlight. And I reached the bottom of the escalator, and there is this family, and the dad kind of stands up and he walks over to me, and I'm like, oh my God, here we go. And he just says, dude, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen. I wish I had the guts to do that too. And it just set up this unbelievably beautiful night of acceptance and love and, graciousness from everybody. And from then, my nerves resurface every now and then, but we're pretty good now.
There's so many things like in that story, I think obviously the most beautiful thing is just seeing your child, because it even isn't about like gender or what you wear. It's just seeing your kid, like really seeing them. That's so beautiful. But I also was thinking about like how, again, in our society, it's okay for girls to kind of wear the boys stuff and do the boy stuff or whatever that means. But you know what I mean? Like it's okay. But for boys, like to do the girl stuff, it's sort of less okay. And why is that? What's that about? It's very frustrating.
Yeah, it is. I'm not going to pretend to have the definitive answer on this one, but I definitely have my thoughts. And our society, our culture, like everything is built around masculine power. And so anything that is more feminine, towards the more feminine side of the masculine feminine kind of thing is seen as weaker, is seen as worse, is seen as less than. And so I know like right now we are in what I would call a giant moral panic around gender, and transgender and non-binary and all that sort of stuff is this massive panic around it. And part of that, and a lot of that is this perceived reduction in masculinity, that your society is going to fall apart as we know it if our men aren't raised as men, like kicking ass and beating everybody up. And what really happens is when you're saying like we can truly see our kids and see our people, when our men are really accepted for exactly who they are, turns out we've got really beautiful, like loving, kind, caring, empathetic, amazing humans who happen to be men, rather than these dudes who just want to like crave power at any cost, So I definitely think it's that cultural structure of the masculine, maybe not even power, but power over everybody else, that there's this idea that it's being threatened. That's not true, but there's this idea that it's being threatened and being reduced, and so there's this big reaction to it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so inspired, like, because we have 3 girls, so the conversations we're having are obviously the other side of the, but I do have a friend whose son about a week ago, and she is very aware, like we have these conversations all the time, she she understands like the whole idea of sexism and casual sexism and how little it can be. So she's in the conversation, and her boy, who is, let me think, 9 or 10, they were going out somewhere, wanted to take a handbag, and he chose a sort of leopard print handbag, one of a purse, and she had a moment where she just stood there and kind of went, in her mind she was thinking, oh God, isn't it amazing that he chose that purse and he has no feelings towards the purse, like it's fine. But she couldn't let him do it. But she didn't say it's a girl thing. She just went, oh, because you're wearing that jacket, do you think this would look better with it? And sort of directed him towards the non-leopardy purse, And then she had a conversation with me about it. She says, I knew it in the moment, but do I put him through that kind of going out with the purse and potentially encountering, that kind of negative feedback,
But do you think it's an age thing? What, I don't know.
Yeah,
at what age is it
exactly
when a boy who's
learned.
3 goes out with a cute leopard skin because he likes animals? And at what age does a parent go, I don't think you should do that?
It's learned. It's not, you're not born with thinking, oh, pink is for girls and blue is for boys. Just, you learn it. Sorry, you were going to.
I can tell. Yeah. Well, just to your point, what age? I mean, I get literally hundreds of messages every day from people on this subject, and it's from like day one, the day they are born, and if they are born male, your grandparents are like, no, you can't buy that because that's a pink toy. It's from the moment number one. But what I would say about the daughters thing is, we have this kind of idea that we can break gender, we can like abolish gender stereotypes for one gender without having to do it for everybody else. And like, this is all great, like in the 1950s when it was like terrible for women, and men had all the power, because it kind of, as bad as it was, it kind of worked. Like one group went to work every day, the other kind of stayed at home, and it kind of worked. Now we have, and it was terrible, but it worked, Now we have this gender being told they can do anything and everything, and you can, attack the world, and then the men are still being told, but you got to have power over them, and you got to be the bosses, and you got to control them. And suddenly there's this massive like imbalance. And so we got to bring the men along too. We got to say, yes, you too can be anything and everything. That doesn't just include societal power over things. Like, you can be a florist, you can love pink, and that empowers our women too.
And that's why I think also when those messages are you come from men, it's so much stronger. Because I think when I've heard women talk about a toxic masculinity in the same way that you talk about it, but I think when it comes from a man, I think maybe men will listen more. So I'm so happy that you were talking about it. Let's stop. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say then, now sort of going back to the book. So when this, this was going on in your life, that obviously made you go, aha, what a great book here.
So tell us about My Shadow is Pink. How was this born? And obviously your son's a big inspiration. Tell us a bit about the background.
So when he was, I always get the age wrong, 3 or 4 years old, his most prized possession was this Elsa doll, like an Elsa figurine. And he used to stop people in the street and show it to them. And like, he was so proud of it. And so he took it to childcare one day, daycare. And he came home completely distraught because somebody had told him that Elsa was only for girls. And that was really like that moment when we first experienced like that external negativity directed towards him. And so that night I kind of sat down and I wanted to show him that, he can love, Elsa, he can love, things that are like in quotation marks, for girls. And so I thought, well, like we read 15 children's books a day, let's kind of see what there is. And I looked for a children's book that kind of tackled that subject. And I could find maybe 2 or 3, and like 2 of them were pretty damn toxic. It was like, if you love that, just change yourself, you'll be fine. And so I was like, I have to write something about this. And so that night I sat down, I wrote the whole first draft. It took me another 3.5 years to make it a good draft. And, which is crazy considering there's like 500 words in it, but now it's out. It's about a young boy born with a pink shadow who wishes he had a blue shadow like his dad. And it's just a story of daring to be different, having courage to be yourself. And I'm so grateful and lucky it's had a really fantastic reception.
And it's and the way you write about it using that analogy is beautiful. That's why I think it works so well. It doesn't sort of even ram the idea through your throat that this is okay. I think it's done in such a lovely way that, I mean, all our girls have read it, and I mean, you could just enjoy it as a story without the message.
Oh yeah,
is my point.
Oh yeah,
well,
totally. So we are, like I said, 3 girls, and they loved it. You know, it's beautiful, and I love the illustrations as well. I wanted to talk to you, Leslie, about your podcast. So you have expanded now, and you've got a podcast, right? Scott Talks. And
I mean, loosely defined as a podcast.
Oh no, is it not? Like, is that wrong? But it is, right?
It is, yeah. I'm having conversations with people about stuff I'm passionate about, and let's just call it a podcast.
So how did that come about? Was that also been sort of something you've always wanted to do, or was it just an opportunity to have like these interesting conversations with people? How did that happen?
Look, I love chatting to people. I love doing interviews. I love like chatting about this, and I love getting really different viewpoints, diverse viewpoints. And so I had been thinking about it for a year, and doing nothing about it. And then my wife kind of gave me that final push, and she was like, why don't you do this right now? Let's reach out to a couple of people. And amazingly, they all said yes. And so now it's been happening for a little bit. I'm only up to I think episode 5, but have managed to have some incredible guests like Kristen Bell, Justin Baldoni, Jeffrey Marsh, and it's just been really amazing. And we've gone really deep from minute 1 on all of them, and I've loved every second of it.
Oh, that's amazing. So that's a Scott Talks, and is it on iTunes, Spotify? Where can people listen?
At the moment, it's only on Instagram Live, and on IGTV. But I will be bringing them across to Spotify, YouTube, things like that at some point when I have time.
Cool. And what's next? So obviously, My Shadow is Pink is your 4th book. Do you have anything cooking at the moment? Any other projects coming up?
I'm just trying to think of what I'm allowed to talk about.
Okay.
So
give us a scoop.
So this year I have another couple of books coming out.
Amazing.
And next year I have a little bit of like an avalanche of books coming out. So I've got like a couple of series coming out with a couple of different publishers, as well as we're right in the publishing kind of process and discussions around some sequels to My Shadow is Pink, which I have written. And so working on those. I'm also working on an animated film based on My Shadow is Pink.
I was just going to suggest that. Yes. Have you ever thought of? So there we are.
Yeah.
Great.
So we're just producing that at the moment, and we're also in discussions with a couple of networks around a TV show based on it. Look, we've got kind of tons of stuff going on. I'm working on a bunch of books. I'm working on my first non-fiction book around how to help your kids discover, accept, and express themselves. So lots and lots happening, too much sometimes, but it's
but it's so good. And I'm so happy you're out there doing all of this. Like I said, we feel like that you're so right. It's the other side of that coin. It's great that there's a lot of content out there that empowers girls, but there needs to be the other side, the sort of the content that empowers boys in a non-toxic way. That's
like allows them to be themselves.
To just be themselves. Where can people find you if they want to come and follow and check you out?
So just on Instagram, Scott Creates, or TikTok, I think it's, what is my username there? Scott Creates 2 maybe. And and just my website. But yeah, I'm around. If you just Google me, Scott Stuart, I'm the guy who's not the sportscaster. So
amazing.
Brilliant.
Well, thank you so much
Thanks,
for
Scott. It's
being with
great.
us today. Thank you for everybody listening. And don't forget to leave us a review and subscribe.
Mhm.
And we shall see you, or you'll hear us next week.
Okay, bye.
Bye.